Hey Sparkers! So today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the history on the Positive Grid Spark Amp and talk a little bit about the community that exists around the Spark Amp. There's several pockets of communities, as a matter of fact. And so I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit about the history, like I said, and kind of go through some of those different community elements. I'm actually pretty excited to have recently announced that I'm teaming up with Florent Desters on the Spark Amp Lovers site. There was a little bit of an announcement we made on his site, as well as both the Spark Amp Owners Club on Facebook and Spark Amp Lovers Club our group on Facebook as well. So it occurred to me that kind of doing a brief overview of the different communities that are out there, talking a little bit about the Positive Grid amp itself might be helpful. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the inception of it. So Positive Grid has been around since about 2013. They're generally known as a software company. So most famous for the Bias FX series of software, Bias FX 2, but they also have some hardware. They've had some Bias amps, some Bias FX pedals. But Bias FX software is what they're most known for. And then they started developing at some point, either in late 2018 or 2019, they started developing the Spark Amp. And they announced it publicly in October of 2019. So there was a press release. This was right here on my screen. You can see this is the earliest article I could find referring to the Spark Amp. But yeah, this was when they announced it. And it really kind of came out a few months after that. So they started taking pre-orders in November, December timeframe of that year. Took a lot of pre-orders, especially in January, when January of 2020 was the NAMM show, and they actually won Best Guitar Amp that year. And so that really sort of propelled the success of the Spark Amp, at least from the get-go. It was still at that time in pre-release, so you couldn't very easily get your hands on one. But that actually sort of created some additional demand. This was at the same time as sort of the pandemic was kind of starting. And a lot of people know that the guitar amps and guitars and basses and stuff kind of became pretty popular during that time frame. So a little bit of a perfect storm situation for Positive Grid. But that was good and bad, right? They had a lot of shipping delays early on because there was just too many people buying these things, and they weren't able to produce them as quickly as they wanted to because of issues with the pandemic, supply chain logistics, and just people going into work making these things, right? So a little bit of an interesting way they got out of the gate with this product, right? So that's when you'll hear a lot of the shipping delays that, especially early on, that people experience. I myself ordered mine in February or March of 2020, and I got it in July. So it took me 4 or 5 months to get mine. But it's a like I said, it's a big community of people. A lot of people are interested in this thing, and so now I'll kind of focus a little bit more on some more of the community that's around the Spark Amp. So the first thing I'll talk about, selfishly, my favorite community is my Spark Amp tutorial site, which is where I'm hosting these videos. So this is my site. I made this. I started it back in August of 2020, so about a month or so after I got the amp. And the reason I started it was because I was seeing on the Facebook group that I was a part of, which was the Spark Amp Owners Club, early on. That's where I spent most of my time. There was a lot of people that had a lot of the same questions about how to use the amp and how certain things worked. And it's a piece of technology as much as it is a guitar amplifier. And so I come from the tech space, and I kind of realized that I could help people kind of learn to use it. And I helped out a couple of people with it. And then someone just asked me, where are my videos? And so I started a channel, and I've been making them ever since. Maybe started off with 1 or 2 a week, and now I'm closer to once every 2 weeks or so. But yeah, this is my community. 3,290 subscribers as of today, which is January 30th. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to be a part of this community, having started this particular one. But there's a number of others that I'm a part of. So as I said earlier, I teamed up with Florent on. He created SparKampLovers.com. It's a go-to resource. There's a ton of stuff in here. It's primarily a knowledge base site. but he also created a sort of a sister site called the Tone Lab. And this is all about, you know, creating tones. Eventually there'll be a forum for, you know, categorizing tones, and maybe a community of uploading tones that is sort of curated list of tones, that sort of a thing. But there's articles in here about how to use different effects pedals and how the different amp models work, that sort of a thing. So this is a great website. I'm a part of it now. I'm working on a blog article right now, and a couple of other tutorial videos around that. So yeah, it's a great community, great site. This was sort of spawned off of his own creation of his Facebook group called the Spark Amp Lovers Group. So we'll get to that in a second. But another, you know, obvious site to go to is Positive Grid. So that positivegrid.com/spark, and I'll put links to all of these sites in the feed below the video. But you know, this is the original, you know, site for the Spark amp. And there are some resources in here, overview of the different, you know, features and functionality. This is a lot of kind of marketing material, but it talks about all the different things that you can do with it. There's some detailed specifications about, you know, the dimensions and the types of connectivity and the, you know, different things that it supports, power, etc. There's a place to track your order, and then there's the support community. And honestly, you know, there's some good information in here. There's information about, you know, tracking, and there's some troubleshooting information. There's some FAQs, product information and manual, a little bit more about usage. And then there's even a couple of tutorial videos. But, you know, honestly, this is the main reason why I have Spark Amp tutorials, was because there just wasn't a lot of content available for this thing, especially early on. So, you know, I recognized that, and I started creating my own tutorials to help out, you know, people who were trying to learn how to use this thing. But there is definitely some good information on here, and it's gotten a little bit better. They started providing more information, you know, as more and more people started getting the amp. So this is definitely a good resource as well. Next up, sorry, this is the same site. Next up, I'll start to get into some of the Facebook groups that are more well known. So Spark Amp Owners Club is the most popular of the different groups, 14,000 members. Saul Sawyer is the main admin of this site. There's a few others as well, but this is where I found the Spark community initially, right? I joined this group, and there's a lot of activity here, and this is where I started seeing people ask some of the same questions, and this group is essentially what helped me spark my channel around this. And you know, it's a good community. A lot of people ask some good questions. Sometimes people don't always ask great questions. It's a lot of the people who have been around here for a while get frustrated by the fact that people pose new questions that they could have easily found on their own, either by searching within this site or even some others. But generally speaking, there's a lot of good community members here. And again, this is for me what started it all. So it's a great group to be a part of. Another very popular group, about half as many members, is Spark Amp Lovers. So this is the one that Florent is the admin of. He created this group when he felt like maybe there was a little bit too much hate, maybe, or people were complaining too much in the Spark Amp Owners Club. So he created this one to be a little bit more, you know, friendly and less aggressive about maybe some of the negative things, and, you know, making it about love, right? So that's where this group kind of came from. And again, that sparked the Spark Amp Lovers site, which I am partnered with and a part of. So I have a lot of love for this community as well. There's a couple of other pretty well-known ones. This is the Spark Amp User Manual Authors Group. So Doug Strickland is the admin of this one. I'm also an admin of this site, but Doug had the idea of a user generated, think of it like a Wikipedia essentially, right? And this is a bunch of us that got together, decided we wanted to help create our own manual that maybe went into more detail than you can see on the Spark site. This was started a little bit after I made my channel, but I was happy to be a part of this community. And, you know, I even have some of my videos linked directly in the site, but there's a bunch of people that have access to editing this document. It's also going to be accessible soon from the Spark Amp Lovers site. Think of this as the Wikipedia of Spark Amp ownership. So it's another cool community to be a part of. Positive Grid has their own community in general. So this isn't just the Spark, but Positive Grid does have a Facebook group. It's actually less members than the Spark Amp Owners Club group is, but what are you going to do? So another group that's cool is the Spark Amp Tone Shack. So this is a group in Facebook dedicated entirely to creating tones, to updating tones, to modifying tones. It's all things tone, right? You'll see people asking for different tones. You'll see people, sharing their tones here. So this community is dedicated specifically to tone sharing and tone knowledge. So another good group to be a part of. But there's several more, and I basically just look up Spark Amp, and you'll see, and this generally lists the most popular, right, with the most number of users in them from the top down. But if you're looking for something specific, this mods group is really interesting. This is where a lot of the guys that have built like pedals or have started to write code that can maybe speak directly to the Spark, right? That sort of a thing. So there's like GitHub communities in here for doing development and custom integrations. People have talked about how to like remove the face panel, maybe shove a sock in there, that sort of a thing for different purposes. So that's another great group to be a part of. But there's several others. Like there's another group that's dedicated to just doing videos. So lots of different Facebook groups. There's also a pretty active Reddit community. So I wanted to mention that here too. It's a Positive Grid Spark is the name of the Reddit community. There's some pretty good activity here. In the last few hours, you'll see quite a bit of questions in here and people being active. Reddit's a pretty big community, obviously. Even our announcement about me and Florent partnering up is in here. So yeah, it's another good community to find stuff on, and that's kind of the main sites and the main groups I wanted to reference here. There's a lot of different communities out there. I would also say that there's a lot of different YouTube folks, whether it's gear review guides. Some of the main like popular guitar gurus have done a bunch of different Positive Grid Spark assessments, reviews, tutorials, what have you. I'm obviously in that space with Spark Amp tutorials, but you'll see a lot of these guys, Geargasms from Alan, a bunch of different other communities out there, and guys that aren't necessarily specific to Spark Amp have done Spark Amp tutorials and stuff a part of their channel. I just happened to see the need for a Spark Amp tutorial specific channel, which is why I created mine, but that doesn't mean that's the only community. In fact, I think I'm going to start to add some of the better YouTube videos that I've seen out there as a part of like a playlist on my channel or something to that effect. I'm still toying with that, how that might work, but in the future on my channel I want to start to do some interviews with some of the other well-known community members, Spark Amp community members, whether that be some of the other site admins, Florent and I doing something with Spark Amp lovers. So keep an eye out for this growing community, whether it's Spark Amp tutorials, Spark Amp lovers, any of the various Facebook groups that are out there. It's a vibrant community. We're all here to help each other, learn how to get the most out of this amp, get the most out of the app. And yeah, this is it's just a very good passion to have, and we're all a part of a big family here. So I hope this helps you get a sense of what's out there and what resources you can find, and I'll put links to all these sites on this video, and yeah, hope this helps. Thanks.